Hi everyone, my name is Ignacio Garcia and I'm product manager here in Intesis, taking care of the protocol translators. Today we are going to show you a demo on how to integrate DALI 2 drivers and multi-sensors into a BMS project, like in this case, or the demo is going to be a BACnet gateway. By this you're going to see how easy it is to integrate all the DALI configuration, all the DALI parameters into your BMS. And I know from experience that sometimes DALI installations are a little bit tricky, especially on the commissioning part. But at the end, DALI is a very flexible and secure and digital protocol that will help you in your projects. By this demo, you will see how easy and intuitive it is to integrate all these devices and will help you to define your the commissioning part of the project by showing you a few strategies that will help you in that way. The tool that we are going to show and use today is MAPS, Intesis MAPS, which is the standard configuration tool for all protocol translators. And as some of you might know, when you go on site for certain applications, you need to have two different softwares. You have the configuration software and then you have the commissioning software for the DALI part. In MAPS, we combine them all, so you only need one software to manage all your project. So let's begin. The first thing that we are going to do is to launch our MAPS software and then create a new project. By creating a new project, we just need to find the gateway model that we are going to use. In this case, if we click here, we can find that is a BACnet DALI 128 template. This template belongs to the DALI gateway that supports two DALI channels to integrate them into BACnet. So just going to click here and start with the project. First thing, what I will do is also to save my project. I can save it as, give it a name, for example, DALI 2, and yes, well, we save the project. And the first thing that we will do is a little bit of an overview of the different parameters and settings that we can find in MAPS. The first one is the connection part, where we will define how to connect to the gateway that we want to program. In this case, it could be an IP or a USB. We have IP, but we are not going to connect just yet. First, I'm going to show you the rest of the configuration part. In the configuration tab, we have the general settings for the gateway. We can decide the way that we want to name the gateway, but also we can decide the type of connection to the gateway. In this case, I'm going to disable the HTTP and just going to have this fixed IP. For the BACnet side, we can also configure all the BACnet general settings that will help me in my integration into BACnet. And then on the DALI part, this is the part that we are work more today, is the definition of the DALI project that we want to have, right? We are going to go in detail a little bit later on. On the signals tab, well, what we find here are the different signals and the equivalent of DALI parameters into BACnet objects. And this is a long list that will be probably edited yesterday, later, depending on the type on the different devices that we are going to have in our project. Once this has been done, we just need to click on send, and then we will send this information to the gateway so we can start working directly on site. On the diagnostics part, we find a console part where it shows the information about the gateway, and then here two logs that is basically logging the information that is going through the different buses that I have in my project. Like in this case, it will be BACnet and DALI. And then this signals overview will help me to later on to trigger some actions to the DALI side in order to test the DALI installation, which is really helpful when we go on site and the BACnet controller is not yet installed or operative. So let's start with the configuration part. What we want to show you during this demo is 3 different methods of configuration. These 3 different methods are an offline configuration, an online configuration, or getting the information from an existing DALI project. The first one, if we combine these first 2 methods, we can save time in our commissioning process. Let me explain you why. Let's say that you are in charge of a DALI project and integration into BACnet, and you still don't have access to the building, and because perhaps the DALI bus and the lighting fixtures are not ready or installed. Well, you can start working in your configuration, in your DALI commissioning process by defining the project up front. It's typical that you have up front the drawings of the building, where you have defined the location of the lighting points, the DALI bus, how it's going to be used, and the different groups, associations for all these lighting points and sensors. So if we have all that information, we can start working, right? So if we go to the DALI, to this DALI tab, in here what we see first is a commissioning button, which basically gives us access to the real commissioning process. This is typically something that we will do on site. So for the moment, we keep it there. So knowing all the information about the DALI line, we can define our configuration tree, if you wish, our project tree. And here we have 2 different channels, channel A and channel B. We have this gateway supports these 2 different channels that are independent and have an independent power supply for each of them. So we can start defining what kind of devices am I going to find in my DALI in each of these channels. We only have 2 possibilities here. We have the ECGs, which basically are the drivers or ballast that are going to be installed, and the sensors, which are possible multi-sensors that we can find in our network. The same goes for both channels, right? So if we start with channel A, we can start defining the ECGs that I'm going to find in my project. These ones, the 4 that we can see here are just standard information that comes with the template in order to help you start in the project. So when we click on one of them, we can see the ECG parameters, the driver parameters, if you wish. These parameters have a common part, and this common part, it is related to the DALI standard. So we can define a name for the ECG. We can set the minimum, maximum level, power on level, system failure level, all the devices, all the parameters that are common for ECGs. But also we have a definition per different device type, right? In the DALI standard defines different type of devices for ECGs. So the ones that we support are here. We have fluorescent, emergency light, LED modules, and others. So depending on the type of lighting points and drivers or ballast that you will have, you will need to select one of these ones. For example, if we look at fluorescent, they don't have any particular device and particular parameters. But if we look, for example, into the emergency lighting, well, we have a number of parameters that are related to how to interact with this particular emergency lamp or emergency ballast. If we go for LEDs, again, we also have a number of parameters specifically for LEDs. And if we click on others, well, this is a definition when there is a driver that does not have that we don't support the specific parameters, but of course we will support the standard ECG parameters, right? For the purpose of this demo, what I have here on my desk are 4 LED drivers. These 4 LED drivers are DALI 2 compliant. So what I want to do is to integrate these 4 devices in my project. And the way that I've defined the installation is just to use a user case. Let's say that we have a building, and in this building, our gateway is going to be installed in one floor, and we want to split the floor in 2 parts, part A and part B. In each of these parts, we are going to have 2 DALI drivers, and at the same time, we are going to have also 1 DALI sensor in each of these parts. So let's start, for example, defining the drivers, the ECGs that I'm going to have in part A. So are going to be 2 drivers, right? So what I have here 4, I don't need them 4, so I just need to multiple select these 2 and delete them. I'm not going to use them. Okay? Now, I'm going to start defining my first ECG. And this first ECG, we know the first that is an LED module, good, and we can start changing the name. For example, I can name it something like, for example, building A, and then office 01, and this LED is going to be placed in office 01 because I can see that on my drawings. Good. So now this is defined, we can define the name, and we can start changing here some parameters. I know from the lighting design plan that the minimum level should not be 10%, but it should be 1%. Oh, there's no problem. I can set it there. I can change some other parameters, and I can define specific parameters of the driver if I know them. If I don't know them, it doesn't matter. We can change them later when we do the integration on the commissioning part. We can do this for the first driver, and let's say that now I want to do the same on the other driver. Well, if we know that the parameters are going to be exactly the same, so they both are going to have a minimum level, and they both are going to have a dimming curve of logarithmic, I can, for example, clone this device. I can clone it as many times as I want, but I only need one. Okay, I just cloned another one. It shows up here, and it's basically, you can see it has the same parameters. This one over here, I don't need it anymore because I don't have 3 and I can use the other one, so I'm just going to delete it. Good. In order to make sure that it matches the plans or the drawings of the building, I'm also going to change the definition. I know that this one is in Office 2, so first I'm just going to change the number, and also here Office 2. Very well. This is the only difference. For the rest, is the same as in the on the other driver. Good. Good. I have now already created my LEDs, and I also want to assign them to specific groups. How can I do it? I can do it per. How can I do that? I can do that per device itself. I can click here and define the group that I want this driver to belong to. It can be, for example, group 1. Okay, and this one, for example, will have a different group. So it will belong to group 3. Okay, it is already belonging to group 1. I want to delete it from here, no problem. There's another way of making this thing, let's say, more efficiently when we have more drivers or more ECGs, and is to go to this configuration tree, and then select here group management. When I click here, I have all my available ECGs and the groups that they belong to. And then here, of course, I can modify it in the best way that I want to. Okay? The same similar behavior is for the scene management. If I know that my ECGs should belong to different scenes and to have a specific light value when this scene is triggered, I can define it here. A scene 0, let's say that for both is go to 100%. I can define it here. Oops, sorry about that. And that I know as well that the scene 1 for this one will be 50 and for this one will be 10%. Okay, now all my configuration of the LEDs in my project for channel A has been done. Let's take a look at the sensors. We also know that in this part of the building I have one specific sensor that it supports multiple instances. In DALI 2, sensors work with instances. If you wish, an instance is like a set of parameters that defines my sensor. In our gateways, we support 2 types of instances. First, I'm going to create the sensor. We support two different types of instances. We can create here two. One that is for occupancy and the other one that is for light, right? One is measuring or detecting presence and occupancy, and the other one is measuring light and reporting it back to the DALI network. So I need to change, what I can do now is change the settings of my occupancy instance of the sensor. When we define, when the lighting designers or the architects or the controls experts define where it should be the, or how it should be controlled, we can set the occupancy and the occupancy strategy for this sensor. Let's put an example. If I only want to that this sensor it is placed in an office, in a closed office, and I want it to detect presence when someone enters the room, I can modify here the different parameters to only detect presence and not to detect, for example, small movements inside of the room, because I'm only interested in there is a presence or there is presence or not. Well, I can change these settings. As you can see now, they are already modified to support that functionality. I can also change the time that I'm going to report that information to the bus. I'm going to make it, let's say, I'm going to make it shorter times so I can see it later in the demo. Okay. The same goes for the light instance. In the light instance, what we can see are the different parameters that will make sure that we are measuring the light correctly and reporting it back to the light to the DALI network. Here we have a number of these parameters define what will be the frequency that I'm informing this information of light to the DALI network in order to make sure that we don't saturate the bus. So, for example, I can also, just for the sake of this information, I'm going to set it really short so we can see it changing. This part, calibration. In calibration, we cannot do anything here yet, basically because we are not connected to a DALI to a DALI network and not connected to the light sensor yet. This part, what it allows us when we are connected to it is to define the exact ratio of what the sensor is measuring and what a real measurement tool, like a lux meter, is measuring on the table or on the desk where the sensor is placed on the below. Sorry. We are going to show you later how does it work. Okay, so we have our sensors and our LEDs already programmed for channel A, and for channel B is exactly the same. We can go a little bit faster because now we know what to do. We are going to replicate the same functionality. So here is going to be an LED module. I'm going to set here that this should be 1%, as we mentioned before, and the logarithmic dimming curve. Now I'm just going to, if I want to keep a similar naming, I'm just going to change it here, according again to our drawing, something that for us is logical and makes sense. And I'm going to replicate the same to the other to another device by cloning the device. Okay, again, now we have another 2. This one can be changed to 2, and there you go. Oh, sorry about that. And then we version 2. Good. So now both have the same settings. We can again work on the group associations as before, and the same goes for the DALI sensors. One of the interesting parts here is that we support the different type of events about how these instances communicate to the bus. And it could be instance event driven, which is typically the standard, or it can be pooling, or could be both. Let's add one sensor. This sensor will have again 2 instances, one for occupancy, one for light instances. Okay. Just I'm going to modify here again the settings to make sure that later in the demo we can see it changing as well, and this one will be more or less the same. Okay. I forgot to activate the events, which is important. We are going to do it right away. And okay, by this we have concluded the configuration of our project. Okay, we have worked on it quite some time, and we are ready now to go on site and do the commissioning of the real installation. Well, the way to do it is, as I mentioned before, going to commissioning. But first, we need to first save the project, of course. We're going to do it right away. And once we have saved, we go on site, and the first thing we should do is to connect to the gateway. I have an IP connection with the gateway, which I can enable and directly connect to the gateway. Now I'm on site, I'm with my gateway and my laptop, and I can start performing the commissioning part. But the good thing is that I have done my project before, so now I'm going to show you how easy is the commissioning process done. Here we have the commissioning table, and this commissioning part is it has two different sides if you looked at it. One here on the left, it is related to the project that I have in my gateway or in this particular template. As you can see, we have the similar names, and we have all the parameters that we are going to load to the existing ECGs. And on the right side, we have the DALI network. And right now, we don't have anything. First, we need to scan the network to find what is there. We have two different ports, so we are going to start with port A. And just by pressing scan, we will start the search of these devices in our DALI network that I can tell you right now, they are connected on my desk, and we should be able to find them. There we go. We see one random address coming, another random address coming as well. Both are for ECGs, okay? And the definition of the type is not ready yet. The reason why is that is because we have not given any address. And when we do that, we will ask these devices, what type of device are you and what other parameters do you have? So I just need to select all of them and click on auto address. And automatically the DALI network now shows two different types LEDs, two different address, 0 and 1 address for one sensor with two instances, one for occupancy and one for light. Good, this is what we were expecting to see. So now what we are going to do, we are on site, and it is to match the specific address that I have here with the project information that I have on the other side. And to do it is really easy. If I click on Wink, right now we will see the LED light specifically from this one. We will see it blinking. We just need to look around, find the right LED, and when we have it clear what it's based, we know that it's based on building part A, office 1. So this is great. I'm just going to stop it. Stop the winking, and I can directly take this information into my project. Okay, we just need to select this one over here because it's where it goes, and that's it. Now, I'm going to do the same with the other one. I need to click on Wink, look for it. Okay, I identify it, press on stop, and now easily directly integrated into the Office 2, where is the other ECG should be placed. Okay, now I have my two ECGs in my project, but I don't have yet I have not done yet the transmission of the information that we wrote here regarding the dimming curve, regarding the groups, all the settings. I have not already set it yet in the ECG. What I can do, the way to do it is just by clicking on Set All. And by doing this, I'm setting the information that is in my project that I have already worked into the real ECG, into the existing ECG. Now, perfect. The ECGs are already programmed. Let's take a look at the sensors. If I look at the sensors, I can easily, for example, just to avoid to see more devices that I am not interested, I can define it here. let's say that, well, I still keep both. With the sensor is the same concept. So I have an occupancy sensor. If I click on identify, I will see my sensor blinking. Normally, if this functionality should be supported by the DALI 2 sensor, you will see somehow the sensor blinking. Okay, now I know that is based also on the location that I wanted, and I just need to assign it. I need to assign the occupancy instance to sensor 1, to the occupancy instance, and the same goes for the light. Oh, sorry, I need to select the right one. Very well. There we go. One of the parts that I wanted to show you is the calibration on the light sensor. Sorry, this calibration will, as I mentioned, is a way to make sure that the light information that the sensor is measuring makes sense with a real measurement from a lux sensor, because at the end, that what the lighting designers define are this type of information. It has to be certain amount of luxes per square meter or certain amount of luxes in a surface. So it needs to match the right information. So if I get on click on raw data, this is the information that my sensor is now, let's say, measuring. Perhaps when this information is fine, but if I measure them on my on the desk surface with a lux meter, I find that the measurement is not 19, but it is at this with this light level. It should be something like, for example, 10. Okay. I need to put more. The more measurements that I include, the more accurate the measurement will be. So now, for example, I'm going to do another measurement, which is I'm going to cover my sensor, and now, as you can see, I have less light. She's measuring there. So, but this light should be, or the right measurement should be 0. I'm going to set it there. And now, for example, I have a flashlight here. I'm going to point the sensor with my flashlight. We see that we have a lot of light over there. So I'm just going to say that this one is 100. Okay. Good. So this is done. I just need to click on apply. And now my sensor is calibrated. My sensor is calibrated, and I need to set the information as I did before to the gateway. I can click on set all. And now all the information from my project is on my port A, or all my devices that are connected in port A, and the commissioning part for port A has been concluded. The same goes for port B. If I click on scan, I should again find 2 other DALI 2 drivers and 1 sensor. The time of scanning, it typically varies depending on the amount of DALI devices that you have on each of the buses. Okay, we see 2 ECGs, and we should be seeing the sensor coming up. There you go. Here it is. We're going to do the same. Pretty straightforward. We can select these 2. We can select these 2, and then click on. Sorry. First, I need to address them. Okay. Need to select all of them, the same as we did before. We can now select one and then the other. We can do this also, let's say, more faster if we click on this double click by selecting all of them into my project, if I have that information very clear. Sometimes most of the installations are many different devices, but all behaving the same. So we just can easily integrate that into our project. The same goes for the sensors, by the way. We have the occupancy sensor, and we can integrate in now my occupancy, and also the same goes for the light. Very good. I can also set my calibration here. This sensor is measuring something different. I can put here, for example, the same as the other. If I cover it, it's also so really small amount of luxes. And if I put it with a flashlight, you can see that it's measured more. Okay? also change it to 100, so we have the right value from the lux meter. Click on apply. Good. Both sides of my installation of my DALI system is commissioned. So I just need to click on apply. And after this, I just need to go to the send part of the gateway and send the information to the gateway. So the gateway will also know all these parameters that we have programmed on it. Download is completed. We just need to connect again to the device itself. We go to connection. Now we see that the device is there. We can also click here, by the way, and then have direct connection over IP. And now I'm going to show you the signals tab. And this one, really quickly, what you can see are the different backnet objects that we support, and the different and its association to a specific channel within a specific unit, right? As the ones that we have defined. The ECGs, the channel A with the ECG for Office 1 and also for Office 2. All these parameters that you can see here are basically the same parameters that we could see on our configuration part, right? On this part over here. This is the most flexible way for the backnet controller, for the backnet master or client, to make sure that they can have that the backnet controller can have the control of all what is happening on the DALI bus. Imagine the flexibility that this allows you to have all the information of the DALI bus directly into your BMS. So basically here what we are helping you to have is the control from backnet over your DALI installation. And we can have here, and we can see here all the different parameters and what we support all of them. Okay. In case you want to integrate all this information into your backnet controller, you just need to click on export, generating an Excel file to modify it, or generating an EDE to easily integrate it into your backnet project. Okay, we're almost done. We just need to check what happens on site, right? We are connected, and we want to make sure that that the lights are actually turning on and off. And there is no, for example, misconnections on the DALI line, on the DALI connection, right? Or even in the power. So that's why we have here the signals viewer. The signals viewer is a really powerful tool to trigger actions simulating a backnet controller. Basically because sometimes you don't have access to a backnet controller when you are doing the commissioning part, right? So you can trigger some actions, like for example, set this light to 100%, set this light to 100%, and now the light associated to the BAL ECG and in the channel A should also show the this 100% in the lighting level. This is for all the devices, but we can also trigger some group signals. So in order to make sure that we can control more than one, or perform broadcast actions as well to trigger light levels, or to ask information to the DALI bus on a broadcast level. And what we see here is the sensors. The sensors are already emitting information. So for example, if I move, if I move, probably we have identified, we can see that the light level is changing, right? That if I use the LED, the flashlight, we can also see that there is a correction that we have applied using the table that we have mentioned before to correct these values and to make sure that we have the right ones on the backnet side, right? This is a correction that you can edit later on, adapting it to your network. And the same goes for the other sensor. For example, in this other sensor, what we can see is that if we are moving as well, we are triggering one of these points over here. The bake. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. the different options, the different combinations that the DALI 2 standard allows. That is when there is presence, when there is no presence. So if I keep quiet, still for a minute for the time that we have defined, this should go to 0. If I move my hand, it goes to a different level with the time that is triggered, that we have defined in the configuration. Probably I should have done the time shorter in order to show this changing as well on this side. Well, this is something that you can program, and it's completely flexible. So don't worry, because this will be changing as well. Now we have triggered the event, so now it's actually changing. Okay, good. This basically concludes these two ways of configuring the gateway. That is more a time and more, let's say, easy for you to do in order to make the best out of your integration time. But let's say that you go on site and the installation is already done, and you want to retrieve that information in your project to later start doing the configuration. Well, let's go to simulate it in a way. We're going to disconnect from here, and we are going to launch a new template. Okay, we as we don't have the other project done. We can click here. We can see that now, for example, this goes back to standard values. Okay, and again, I can save my project. This is another test. So this will be 003. And so in this case, we are on site, and we have not defined the project yet. Well, in that case, all that I need to do is to make this list completely empty. Okay. Okay, we can do it directly there. We can make this list completely empty. And now what the course of action is, I'm going to connect to the gateway first, and I'm going to scan the network to find what is in all the information there. So if I go here, I connect to the gateway. Oh, there we go. Now I'm connected to the gateway. The gateway has probably not a project in it yet, but what is interesting for us now is to see what is on the DALI side, so we can adapt it to our project and not the other way around. So first we're going to scan the DALI network, and well, we find, surprise, 2 LED drivers, and we have 2 occupancy and 1 sensor with 2 instances. And as you can see, as a difference from the previous configuration option, this list is completely empty. So what we are going to do right now is to get all the information from these devices. We are going to assign them to my project. And then it says, do you want to get the ECG current parameters? Yes, we want to. So now what we are getting is all the information that is in those parameters, in those drivers. The same goes for the sensors. We can also import them all. Yes. Now it's done, and now the configuration has already gotten all the information. Sorry, this was just doing the same job as before. We can do the same for port B. Scan, look for what is on the port B connected. Very good. Now when the commissioning process stops, there we go, I can import this in all the ECGs with the existing configuration of the ECGs, or the drivers. The same goes for the sensors. Well, in this case, the sensor, the 2 instances, sorry. And that's it. Now we should have all this information in our project. Let's apply. And here, let's check what we have in our project. we have two ECGs with the information that is coming from the driver, from the ECGs. Maybe there are some corrections here. It really depends on the manufacturer, but the set is logarithmic. The groups association is also there. The scenes are also there as well. So all this information is present on the sensor side and also on the ECGs. As we can see here before, there we go. Yeah, that's it. And the same goes for the other part of the project. Now, all what is left to do is to send this information to the gateway. The gateway will store the values of the lighting, of the DALI lighting part. And that's it. The project is finished. We have our commissioning process done. And we have our commissioning process done indeed. And we have our association into BACnet and DALI objects already defined, where we just need to, as I said, export to an EDE and start working with our BMS. And remember, with DALI, with our DALI gateways, you and the control is on your BMS, and your building management system will be able to control all the lighting information in order to make sure that we can meet both parts of the system. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.